Amplified Impact. We are back for an exciting episode today. I have another jungle mama with me. She is from Canada, Jak Shaw, a seven-figure business mentor from Canada, living in Costa Rica with her kids. And I was so excited to bring her here because she's really sharing how to do things your own way, unapologetically, by diving into the wisdom of your heart. And she's definitely guided me on a few, like, didn't know something was going to happen, unfolding, like devastating tears, but like on the other side it was like, who am I? So thank you, Jacqueline. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I am so excited to be here. And I don't think I've ever been introduced as a jungle mama before, and I really liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah, I love it. It was like, I seen that you were here raising your family in Costa Rica, and I'm just like, it's such a different way. And I know that you do 6 months here and 6 months there, but maybe you can just kind of share with the audience listening here, like how you ended up in Costa Rica and how you balance the two different worlds, because Costa Rica is so different from Canada or the States. The regular life, but you're doing it in such a beautiful way, and it's really empowering.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I feel like I knew before I had kids that I wanted to raise my kids outside of the norm, like that I wanted to raise my kids on a beach. And so we first started coming to Costa Rica actually when my daughter was 10 weeks old. My son was 2.5 at the time. She was 10 weeks old. And I really just fell in love with the jungle. And there was, lots of back and forth. And with my husband's business as well, there was periods of time it didn't feel like we could be fully be here. And then once we had the opportunity to really be here more and more and more, um, that's just what we chose. And right now, for the past few years, we've been here 9 months of the year mostly. Like we travel and stuff, but we're here pretty much for the kids' school year. Even though we unschool, we're here for the kids' school year. They go to this well, they homeschool 3 days a week, and then they go to this art spirit school 2 days a week. So we're pretty much here September to June right now. That might shift a little bit next year as we have some travels and things happening in the fall. But we really have, you know, it really works well for us. It really works well for me, my husband, our kids. We like the two different energies. Like I love it here. And sometimes I feel like I could be here full time in like the jungle, the surf, the ocean. And then when we're back in Canada, we live in BC and we live in the mountains. And I feel such a different energy there as well. Like I often say, like when I'm in the mountains, there's that real like, you know, deep well, here there's very like deep jungle energy, and there I find very like deep, like wolf medicine type of energy. And we have a beautiful property in Canada. We have this mini Scandinave spa. We live in this, there's like a forest, a mossy forest in our backyard. It's very different. And I feel like we really thrive in both, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that because it sounds like you have your own type of jungle there. Like it's different from, the tropical jungle, but you're on like your own little sanctuary there as well. And yeah, with you and like your story that really resonated with me so deeply is like the ability to have it all and like go surfing, come connect with your clients online and like have this like really strong brand around like building wealth and living this freedom-based lifestyle, like being different in that. And how do you find like Canada, Costa Rica, surfing, and running your business online in a like claiming wealth, like big money, rather than just being like, I'm going to be the surfer hippie, where there's so many here that exist in Costa Rica? Like, how do you balance that? And what do you stand for when it comes to like desiring lots of money and also being a free spirited, like jungle mama?
Well, I definitely, I feel like redefining what we feel like it needs to look like to be successful, to like create a lot of wealth. Like I'm connecting with my clients often and popping on calls after I have done things like I've been surfing for the morning, which fuels me. And then I know I get to show up in, such a magnificent energy then to serve my clients. And so there's really no rules for me. Like I often say, it's like salty hair millionaire vibes, like barefoot millionaire vibes. It's like I just get to be fully who I am. And I think oftentimes we just have this picture of like what we need to be, what it needs to look like in order to be successful, that we need to be professional, that we need to be all of these things. And of course, we get to be professional and all these things, but it's like where we put ourselves in these boxes of like, it needs to look this way, that I need to, you know, have my hair brushed before I jump on a call. And I say that I need to have my hair brushed because like oftentimes like I'm just sharing like I I, I don't look perfect. I wear lots of big chunky jewelry and I get out of the ocean and I have this like salty hair like I'm surfing like I'm just really living my life, but that's what my clients really want to experience in their own life. I'm a line 6 in my human design, which means I lead and live in the role model frequency. And so for me, leading with such a state from such a state of freedom is really important to me and really important to most of the women and the men that I work with as well, is that they want to have the freedom to be fully who they are, to live the life that they want to live, to be exactly who they are and not to, I think for me, it was really important to not like put myself in a box, to not define myself in like certain ways of what I needed to do in order to create the business and the life that I want to.
Yeah, and it's for me, it's like the redefining what success looks like and making a statement of like you get to have it all in the way in which you choose and what's your own unique definition. And so many people listening here are like multi-passionate. It's like, do I need to niche down? Does it need to look this certain way? And it's like we talk about getting out of the box all the time. And I know that a lot of the work that you do is like through spiritual activation and energy work. And that too can be like, oh, that should be free. Like spiritual people shouldn't be desiring money. So it's just like you literally are the embodiment of like, let's change that story and let's live from the heart and show you what that actually means in, the sixth line. And I seen some of your most recent posts about like living and leading in the sixth line. And do you want to talk about like what that looks like for you and the clients that you work with when you bring in the spirit activation? Because I've been through a few of your sessions and they're really powerful. So just like maybe walking through like what that looks like for you.
Yeah, well, I'd say there's two pieces of this, and one is connected to the line 6 in my human design. And before we get there, like the biggest piece was just really owning my gifts, like owning the medicine, owning, the lens in which I experience the world and being willing to lead from that and knowing that that is enough. Like when I share my truth, I believe that your audience here gets to receive. When you share your truth, I get to receive. When you're someone I meet on the street tomorrow shares their truth with me, like I get to receive. And so for me, the more that we're willing to be who we fully are, the more that we're willing to speak our truth, the more that we're willing to show up in this nature, well, the more people get to receive around us as well. And I truly feel and believe that it's our job here for all of us to be the fullest expression of who we are, who we came here to be. And this is often where we get lost on our spiritual journey, lost on our entrepreneurial journey when we start looking outside of ourselves. We start looking outside ourselves to define who we are. We start looking outside of ourselves for validation. We start looking outside of ourselves for that like approval. Am I doing it right? Am I the good girl? Am I all these things? And the invitation with me is to always to like move from inside, move from your own state of truth, move from your own embodied wisdom. And it did take me a while. I people often ask me, like, did you always know this? Like, were you always in such deep conviction and knowing of who you are? And part of me wants to say yes, and part of me also is going to definitely say no. And when I say yes and no, it's because I feel like this nature was always within me, and which I believe is always within all of us. And then like many of us, I got lost. I hid my voice. I started to compare myself. I started to feel like, well, if you want to create success, you've got to do it this way. And there's certain things that you don't bring forward, and there's certain things you don't talk about, and there's certain parts of yourself that, you know, I don't even think it was like consciously like hide that part, but there's just parts that I wasn't willing to bring forward. And even as you said there, like I lead a lot of activations. I lead a lot of like energy, spiritual work. And for a long time, I really hid this. It was like once you were inside my world, once you were a client, I'd be like, so there's this like thing I do, there's this like magic that I have, but I would never bring it forward publicly, whether the thoughts were, who am I to do that, or the fears of judgment, I don't even know what it was, to be honest, but I do know that I got lost in that, and it took me just really claiming it and leading in it and bringing it forward to allow things to unfold in the way that they've unfolded, to allow me to create that next level of success. Like, I had to own it before I had the evidence of it working. I had to believe in it and trust in it before I received any validation outside of myself. And this is very, much how I lead as a line 6 that you asked about as well. So the line 6 in human design is to lead, like I shared, as from the role model frequency. And so that was a whole piece in itself. I'm a projector as well. So projectors really lead from this projector power, like I am frequency fields. And so owning, that the way that I experience the world, the truth of what I see, my lived wisdom was enough, that I'm here to lead from my lived experiences, not from something that I've been taught or read in a textbook, and I'm just leading from the deep remembrance that I've come into, and within that, I invite my clients into a deeper state of remembrance, into that sacred wisdom and that connection within themselves.
Yeah, and it sounds too like just this permission of like, if you have this desire in your heart to bring something forward and there's fear, that's like the edge that you get to bring in and how you're actually going to get to your next level in business or next level in life is like doing the thing that you desire to do, but like it actually doesn't make any sense, but you feel the pull to do it. And through like, would you say mentorship has helped you? Like, what got you past that fear of like, this is what I do behind the scenes with my client, but like, this is what I'm going to talk about now to the world as like, this is what happens. Cause I always feel like there's this secret that happens for a lot of people, like behind closed doors, like, this is what happens. And once you get in my world, you understand the magic that I hold. And so there's that edge of like talking about the magic that you hold. And some of it can be like, do I need to be humble? Can I really claim that this is my gift? Am I really good at that? Like, there's this edge of like, I'm really good at this and this is my gift.
Yeah. So for me, often when resistance comes up, like almost always when there's resistance coming up, it's like there's something for me to lean into here. Like there's an edge here. There's like an opportunity for expansion. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's something here. And so I'd say there's that piece of it. You asked about mentorship. Like mentorship is always, I mean, always exists for me. It's always part of my journey. And not so much in the sense of like, yeah, when there was parts that I was hiding, that I would have a conversation with my mentor and she was like, "You can do it, bring it out." It's like not that. It's through the witnessing of, through the witnessing of how my mentors operate, through the witnessing of like them standing so deeply in their truth, in conviction of what they're here to do, and knowing that we're very different, and knowing like every mentor I've had, I feel like I also really view as they have something to offer this world, and gifts and magic and medicine, and so do I. And so really not coming in and entering mentorship relationships from a, well, they have something I don't, putting them on a pedestal, like buying into any type of belief around a hierarchy, feeling like, I hire mentors from like a fix it energy. It's like they have something to offer me because of what they've lived, because of what they've experienced, because of what they've already remembered. And that's how I enter mentorship containers. That's how I choose my mentors. That's how I, operate in mentorship spaces. And then with my mentors, I always have had the most like deep, powerful, profound conversations.
Yeah, and I love that it's like not the fix it energy. It's like the let's be in the room together and see how you think and how you feel and how you do things and like letting their wisdom come through just being in the energy of that. And when you like hold these spaces in your containers for like tapping into innate wisdom, like for someone who's listening and is like, I know there's something for me, but I don't know what's like coming through in the wisdom, like what conversation could they have with oneself or journaling to like really activate like that conviction inside of themselves of like, this is what I'm meant to bring into the world?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that we forget that we're like actually designed to forget. And that's gonna sound funny, but it's like oftentimes when we forget our like truth, when we forget the divine nature, when we forget who we are, then we can spiral, right? Then it's like, oh my gosh, well, then we go into like the shame, the guilt, the this, the that. Well, I've already effed everything all up, or I've gosh, I thought I had that breakthrough already and I'm back here again. And why is that fear still existing? And for me, it's like every time we forget, every time that old story comes forward again, every time that fear presents itself again, well, it's actually just an invitation to go deeper in the remembrance of who we are. And so instead of feeling like, "Ugh," like, see, I can never figure it out. I can never do it. Instead of bringing in that shame, that feeling of like not feeling enough, not feeling worthy, whatever it really is for you, it's like, can you see the gift? The gift in the forgetting is that you receive the gift of remembrance. And so for me, it's always like, what causes me to remember? Like what causes me to remember who I am, who we all are. For me, like you mentioned, journaling there. Yes, there can be journaling. For me, it's very much through reading. I read a lot. I read a lot of spiritual texts. Being in stillness, just being in a being state of energy, dropping out of my mind. Our mind just likes to take us in all the wildest places. Our mind likes to overcomplicate things. We get very overwhelmed when we're in our mind. So for me, the biggest invitation is, can you come back into the state of remembrance again and again and again? And when you've forgotten, can you have ways and tools that bring you back into this state of remembrance? Can you give yourself compassion and grace? Can again, this is where for me, like mentorship's been invaluable. It's like when I forget and then I'm surrounded by women who are also remembering, it's easier for me to remember.
Yeah, and seeing them in their power, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right, there's where I am." And I love this idea of, like, the state of stillness, because so often we try to figure things out from the head, like, ask the questions, do the things, and the ability to sit and be still or journal. And I also seen that you recently went, I think, to an event for Conversations with God. Is that right? A book?
So I speak a lot about conversations with God, and Neil Donald Walsh, who I found, and I've been studying his work for 7 years now. I wasn't at an event. I've been in a group mentorship space with Neil Donald Walsh and a private mentorship space with him, and it's been extraordinary.
I love that so much because I came back to this book because of you. And what would you say for you, like the conversation with God, and like what does God like mean to you when you have those deeper conversations? Because I think this is another thing that we can redefine, like what it is talking to God and what that can be in a more spiritual aspect of in life and in stillness, but also like in the things that we're doing, like raising our kids and getting ready and like cooking food.
Yeah, so I mean, this is such an interesting story and navigation of my whole like experience with God and prayer. And I actually recently recorded a podcast on my own podcast about this because there's like so many layers of this for me. So even 7 years ago, when I found the Conversations with God books, I mean, I wouldn't even say I found it, it literally fell out of a bookshelf onto my feet. And the word God at that time was like a no for me. I was just like, like, no, Conversations with God. And it was like this big, thick book because it was like the book where there's three in one book. But I opened it, just fell on my feet. So I opened it and I read a page and I was like, what is this? Like I took a screen or a picture of a page and I sent it to my best friend and she was like, what is this? And I was like, Conversations with God. And she's like, God, what? Like it was like this like thing, but I was like, I just felt like I just wanted to read this book. And in the beginning, well, I felt like there was so much, again, just bringing me into this state of remembrance. There was like so many spiritual truths I had just, I was just like on the other side of an experience that I call my spiritual smackdown, which is really my spiritual awakening. And I was reading things in the book that I was like, I've had this thought before. I've had this like knowing, but I've never heard anyone speak about it. I've never heard anyone say it. And there it was in print, like staring back at me. And so I yeah, I just went on a journey with Conversations with God from there and ended up on this experience with Neil Donald Walsh as well. But in between, like when I first picked up the book, my experience or what I thought having a conversation with God meant was like something outside of me. And so I didn't have this experience. Like I didn't really understand what he was saying when he said he had conversations with God. Cause I was like, okay, what? You like speak and you hear a voice. And like that had never been my experience. And the more, I just really processed this and tuned into this for myself. Like the conversations that we have with God are conversations that come from deep within ourselves. And so things really shifted for me when I started experiencing God not as this, something outside of me. And then I also started to notice where I had given my power away to like something outside of me and started to really understand and feel and connect with the truth that God's within me. God's within you. God's within all of us. And so then it was connecting to this presence of God within me, the presence of the divine within me. And so in trusting in what I feel and what I know and what I experience at the soul level.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's powerful to think about it being inside of us and not outside of us. Like you were saying in mentorship as well, it's like they aren't someone, they're just mirroring back to you your potential and your power. And I also think that helps us to like break any of the like growing up in high school and it's competition. If she's thriving, I can't, and like putting God at somewhere else. But it's just like this higher power of being supported that is in you. It's like your magic, like you are here, like operating as God's child, like as a part
Yeah.
this, like, magical experience.
Yeah, and all of my work, like all of my work is to lead you into this place, like into this sacred soul remembrance, into, stirring up the sacred wisdom within you in trust in that connection, in that divine presence within you. So trust in what doesn't make sense in your mind, but make sense in your soul. Trust in your intuition, trust in the messages that you're receiving. And then beyond the trust in it, being willing to bring it forth, being willing to stand in it, being willing to speak from this place, to lead from this place, being willing to like be so deeply rooted and anchored in your truth.
Yeah, and when you
And really like like really harnessing this personal power from within, because this is where when I talked earlier about myself getting lost in this journey, and this is where I see so many people getting lost on the journey. It's like when we outsource our power, when we go searching outside of ourselves, and it's always within first. Like the deeper we go within, the more that we're going to be able to receive, the more we're going to ascend, the more we're going to be able to create, the more the more success, the more wealth, the more love, like all of it.
Yeah, and it's like this inner wisdom isn't coming from, like, the things that we know, the things that we study, the things that we learn, but it's like this feeling inside of, like, knowing that this is the path, knowing this is the decision, knowing this is the turn. Is that, like, what you're guiding towards? It's like it's a feeling of inside of you knowing that this is the next step, this is the next decision, this is the next idea.
Yeah, and some people feel this very, much in their body. Like they're like, "Ooh, I feel this and I feel like it like in this certain area of my body, or I feel this gut instinct, or I feel like energy in their body." For me, that's not the way I feel it. I feel it's just like this deep like I know because I know. And it's
Mm.
like I know because I know. I know because I know. And the human part of me oftentimes wants to like go up into my mind and be like, but how do you really know this? Or the human part wants to look for that validation. And it's like, if we can lead from, I know because I know, like, I know because I know, I am because I am, like, this is truth. This is my truth. And because it's my truth, it doesn't mean it needs to be your truth, because I also believe multiple truths get to coexist. But our job for each and every one of us is to lead from our own state of truth.
Mm. And do you feel like this space of like this knowing I am, I know, it comes from like an embodiment of like being in alignment with what your truth is? Like if you're not in alignment, it's like hard to tap into that space of like inner knowing and personal power.
Yeah, and because, like, again, if you're in a space and in the part of your journey where we've all been, by the way, as well, like, where you are outsourcing your power, where you are thinking like they have the answer, or, putting people on a pedestal or seeing the hierarchy, well, it's just disconnecting you from your truth, and it's creating an illusion, it's creating distortions in your energy field, and so, there feels like there's this disconnect from who we really are. That's an illusion, of course. Like, we're never not connected. We have the ability to tune in and connect at any time, but it does take that, like it almost just feels like a practice within and a building up of that trust is what I'd say. So much of my work is based in trust, because we've also, many of us, spent years betraying ourselves. We've been spent years, not listening to our intuition. We've spent years outsourcing our power. We've spent years, we have so much conditioning being taught to like, you don't have the answer. Like the answer is outside you. Like you need to think logical, you need to weigh the pros and cons. So there's been a lot working against us coming into this remembrance. And that's why I said before, it's like, can we come into this remembrance and do this type of work without, judging ourselves? Like, can we come in with compassion so that when we feel that incline to judge ourselves, to go into shame, guilt, it's like, can I just remember that this is an opportunity for me to remember?
Mm. And when you say that, like the unconditioning, do you feel like most of our work of finding our truth and taking our power back is letting go of the conditioning that we've been told by society, by family, ancestral lineage of like, this is the way it is. And we have to just kind of undo that thing. And then every layer, there's another thing that you need to take off and let go of as you're coming back to remember.
So it's interesting for me, this question, because I feel like there's like the pendulum can really swing almost like too far in one direction where it feels like there's always another layer for me to peel back. There's something I need to go searching for. There's always something that I need to fix. There's the motherhood wound and the child wound and the sister wound and you know what I mean? Like there's always this like, and that is not really my experience. It's not my belief. It's not the work I lead my clients in. Of course, is there going to be things that come up? Yes. But what I really guide my clients in and what I call this is really looking at the belief codes that we're carrying with us right now. And many of the belief codes we hold right now are based on, past stories that have been handed down through us for, through generations, past memories we've had, past experiences, past evidence that we bring into the now. And for me, it's like having the awareness of the untruths that live in our energy field, having the awareness of essentially the lies that we hang on to, and being able to shift there, being able to shift those beliefs like at a soul level. And so I'm not talking like beliefs in the mind, like let's cross our fingers and like believe and hope that this could be the way for us. But it's like this deep, like seated like belief code that exists within you. Like we have beliefs, and our beliefs directly impact what we experience in the world. And so we have to look at in my experience and what I do in my mentorship is like, let's look at those belief codes. Like what are the belief codes that are creating limitation in your energy field? And what belief codes do you want to choose? Do you want to adopt so that you can, start to play in the realm of the unknown, in the realm, like in the quantum realm with this like quantum essence?
Yeah, I like this idea of contemplation of belief codes because it does take you into the questioning of like, what am I operating from? Like, what is these decisions I'm making? Like, where is that coming from? And what belief is underlying that? Because everything that we do is based upon a belief or habit that we hold.
Yeah. And if there's belief codes that are creating like these distortions and limitations in our energy field, well, that's what's blocking the experiencing. That's what's blocking the receiving. And so we can do all the things at the human level, and we can do all of the like we can go into fix it mode and all of the healing and still not receive the things that we want to receive, still not be an energetic match because we haven't shifted at the core level. We haven't shifted from this depth within, like where the belief was formed.
Mm. And
But
coming
for me, I feel like we don't even need to go searching for those because it's evident. It's like evident very quickly. Like when I'm working with the client, it's like there's something here. Like there's something here. There's a belief here. And so through that, the conversations come up. Is there things that need to be let go, release? Is there things that need to be healed? Yes, often very much so. Um, but this is where I feel differently than a lot of people. I think in the sense of like I don't need to go search for the things. I just need to sit in like conscious witness and conscious awareness of like what's actually running the show right now. Like I love to bring my clients into the moment of now. Like what's going on now? What's like okay, yes, that thing that you have past evidence for feels very real right now. Like is it true right now?
Yeah, and that was the direct question. I'm like, "So then do you sit there and you remember you go looking for it?" And it's like, no, it's like sitting with what is rising up in that moment rather than trying to find like the problem, the
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
Mm, wow. And
Yeah. I think that right there, it's like I
yeah,
don't feel like we need to go into like searching for the problem into like
yeah,
this fix it energy. Because
yeah.
I don't believe any of us are broken. So this is why I don't believe we need to go into fix it energy. I don't believe, you're broken. I don't believe my clients are broken. I believe that we're all here on a soul journey, and every single thing that we've experienced, no matter how heartbreaking or painful or traumatic, even everything that we've experienced, everything that we're experiencing, there is something at the soul level. There's something in our soul's agenda that's allowing us to grow and evolve. And, dropping our human agenda in service of our soul's agenda is not easy. But when we can do that, when we can allow ourselves to drop the human agenda and trust in the soul's agenda, that's where I feel like there's a lot of opening.
Yeah. The human and the soul and how can they coexist to like really embody like where it is that you want to go as you continue to grow and evolve. And I think a lot of times it's the human that gets in the way of our soul's evolution and growth. It's like the mind and wanting to figure it out and wanting to problem solve.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to say, and it's not trying not to be human either. It's like, can I allow myself to be human and trust that I'm here on a soul journey? Like, we came here to be humans, and that's why it's like, of course you're gonna have all the human experiences. You're gonna have the anger, the rage, the disappointment, the sadness, the heartbreak, the pain. Like, you're not meant to avoid those experiences. And it's like we can get, I do think that there's oftentimes it's like, but I don't even want to be human, especially when we're on this like spiritual journey. And it's like, no, like within the human moments, though, that's where it's like, can you find compassion for yourself? Can you come back into the remembrance of who you are? Can you lead from the lens of love? Can you look at the world through the lens of love versus getting caught up in the human experience, which also often leads to a lot of this like fear, overwhelm, shame, guilt.
Mm. Yeah, and letting yourself be human and
Yeah, like, can you let yourself be human? Like, I like this like, people ask me, like, "So what do you do when you're having human moments?" I'm like, I bring play into it. I'm like, "Oh, like, look at me being, like, so human. Like, look at me having, like, these human thoughts and these human
Mhm.
fears and being a very real human." Like, "Oh, yeah, because I'm human." And
And then
so I take
we'll
off this,
remember.
like, making it mean anything about who I am. It means I'm a human.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, I'm a human. But oftentimes, this is where we spiral, right? It's like, I had these human experiences, and then it makes it mean this about me, and then I'm not worthy, and then I'm not enough, and then I can't receive, and then I'm not an energetic match, and then I can't hold this, and then I'm not capable of. And like, I'm just like, no, it means none of that. Like, it actually means nothing.
And then it takes us so far away from, like, our soul and our gifts and, like, our mission and what we're here to do when we go into that, and it's like, then they go in 2 separate tracks rather than, like, merging together to coexist.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Such a good conversation. I feel like I could ask you have conversations with you for forever. What are the best ways for those listening here that want to dive deeper into the remembrance and into the heart and into, like, letting your human be here and letting your soul evolve? Where do you hang out most?
Well, I mean, this is the work that I do, and so following me anywhere. So my podcast, I speak a lot about this, and my podcast is my favorite place to be, which is the Jacqueline Shaw Show. Also on Instagram right now, I'm running a free experience. It's a 3-week experience called Belief Codes, and it really is like all of my work is about this. It's like bringing you into this remembrance. And like I said, for myself, it is being in mentorship spaces and like choosing mentors that really feel like bring me into the state of remembrance, and through stillness, through practices of stillness, meditation, reading books. Like if you, I mean, I'm like looking down right now because I'm just like, oh yeah, if you like saw the stack of books that's always surrounding me, like that for me is the strongest place of remembrance. It's not through journaling, it's not through my own writing. It's literally like I'll read things and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember who I am and who we all are.
So powerful reading, bringing us back. Amazing. I will link your Instagram and your podcast in the show notes. So if you're not already, run and follow Jacqueline. And if you loved something inside of this, take a screenshot, tag Jacqueline and I on Instagram, and let us know what really landed in your heart.
Thank you.
Bye.